Good afternoon and welcome to Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. So long to April showers and bring on those May flowers. Stick around to the end of our program and we'll bring you to a legacy planting of rhododendrons in South Burlington. Before we get there, it's time to go to the kitchen with Chef Marco as he thinks spring and gets ready for Mother's Day. And so without further ado, let's say bon appetit to Chef Marco.
Thank you, Jolie. Hi, I'm Marco Ayala, and I'm here to share another recipe with all of you. And I'm starting this segment with some bad news. Our really good friend of this segment, Celia Hacket from South Hero, passed away on April 25th, surrounded by her family. And well, all I can say is that Celia was always so sweet, such a great personality, and most importantly, she had the biggest work ethic I have ever seen in anyone. Celia and her husband Ron started Hackett's Orchard in 1967, and it quickly became a staple of South Hero. I've known Celia for, about 20 years now, and she was always great about sharing some of her recipes and some of her knowledge because she was an amazing cook. So we're really gonna miss her. She is survived by her husband Ron, her daughters Jill and Deb, and you may remember Deb from being a guest cook here on Across the Fence. And to honor Celia, whom, as I said, was an amazing cook, well, I am making one of her recipes for you, to share with you today, and it is a dessert. So we're starting with dessert. So let me check this out. This is a tart cherry pie. And this was one of Celia's specialties. Even though a lot of her recipes were apple, this really stands out. So let me tell you how she used to make this. First, to a bowl, you're gonna add 5 cups tart red cherries. In this case, I'm using frozen black cherries. Then you're gonna add the juice of 1 lemon. Cherries are a seasonal fruit, and specifically tart cherries are even a little harder to get your hands on. So, in order to make this recipe, I really wanted to recreate all the ingredients that Celia used to use, because this recipe is incredibly simple, yet so complex, because by using tart cherries, it really balances out all of the flavors in there. So that's why I added the juice of 1 lemon, because I'm using black cherries. Then you're gonna add 1 cup sugar, 4 tablespoons flour, and half a teaspoon almond flavoring. And you're gonna mix all the ingredients well. Then you're gonna spray a pie plate, and you're gonna place a pie crust on the plate, and then with a fork, you're gonna poke some holes at the bottom of it. Then you're gonna add your cherry mixture, and then you're gonna add a top crust. Crimp the edges, and poke some holes at the top of it to allow the steam to escape. And then you're gonna bake to 425 degrees. And you're gonna bake the pie for about 10 minutes. Then you're gonna cover the edges with a pie saver, and you are going to reduce the temperature to 350 degrees, and you're gonna continue baking for about 45 minutes. Once you remove the pie from the oven, the filling will be bubbly, and you want to make sure that your crust is nicely browned. And that is it. Isn't this an easy recipe with ingredients that, well, aside from the cherries, it's stuff that you probably already have in your pantry. It is really hot still, so it might be a little messy. You might want to let it cool a little longer, but I just can't wait. So I really hope that you also make it at home. And here we go. Ooh, look at that. That looks great. So I hope you make it at home. As I said, this is a great recipe that I think all of your family is going to enjoy. And I think that is a great way to celebrate the life of a really great neighbor. So now that we've done dessert, let's move on to a recipe that is great for spring because it's already May and well, the flowers are blooming and we're starting to see fresh veggies in the gardens, in the farms, in the supermarket. So another short sign of spring is fresh eggs. So I wanted to make something with veggies and fresh eggs. And how about a quiche? So this is my spring quiche. And look at all those veggies in there. I think that this is something that you're really going to enjoy. So let me tell you how to put it together. First, you're going to take 3 scallions and you're going to chop them. Then you're going to take 6 to 8 mushrooms and you're going to cut them in slices. Then you're going to take 10 to 14 pieces asparagus and you're going to cut them in smaller pieces. Then you're going to spray a medium saucepan with non-stick cooking spray. And once it's nice and hot, you're going to add your veggies. Cook your veggies for about 5 minutes or until the asparagus is tender. And you're going to season them with salt and pepper. Remove the veggies from the heat and top the pan with about 1.5 cups spinach. Then, to a large bowl, you're going to add 6 large eggs, 1 1/4 cup heavy cream. You're going to season it with salt and pepper, and you're going to whisk it well. And I get my eggs from a good friend that lives in Milton that has some backyard hens. It makes a huge difference when you're using fresh eggs that you know exactly where they came from. In fact, I know the name of the hens that lay these eggs. So, as I always say, make sure to support your local producers, your local stores, because it's always great to know where your food is coming from. Then you're going to spray a deep pie plate and you're going to prepare it with a pie crust. You're going to poke a few holes on the bottom of the pie crust and you're going to add your veggies. Pour the egg mixture on top of it. Then you're going to take 4 ounces Gouda cheese and you're going to cut it into small pieces. And finally, you're going to sprinkle the Gouda cheese on top of your quiche. And then you're going to bake your quiche at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. And it's just that easy to make quiche that it's a perfect recipe for any time of the day. With this recipe, we are ready for spring. And you can remember that you can find these recipes on our website, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get all the great content of Across the Fence right on your phone or your computer. And with that, those are my recipes. And remember what I always say, which is from my kitchen to your kitchen, happy cooking. And back to the studio to you, Joleo.
Thank you, Marco. Those dishes look delicious. From recipes to rhododendrons, the UVM Horticulture Research Facility is a gem hidden amongst the suburban sprawl of Shelburne Road. It's home to many legacy plantings that have been around since 1950 and continue to be maintained by a group of dedicated individuals known as the Friends of the Hort Farm. These caretakers of the collection at the research facility have knowledge, know-how, and a keen sense of caring for the natural world. Let's join Ben Willis as he learns about some of the oldest plants on the property.
We're at the UVM Horticulture Research Farm in South Burlington, and we're going to take a look at the Rhododendron Collection here.
Paul first became aware of UVM's impressive rhododendron collection 35 years ago as a graduate student at UVM, and he was hooked.
I think in the ornamental plant world, rhododendrons kind of check all the boxes. I mean, the obvious thing is they have these really beautiful showy flowers that, you know, they're just spectacular when they bloom. Large size and just great colors. The other thing that, you know, noteworthy is they're evergreen, so they have presence in the landscape for 12 months of the year, which is important.
There are 2 sections to the collection. The youngest were planted 50 years ago by UVM professor Dr. Norman Pellet.
His idea was to try to see what the possibility was for some of the varieties that were out there in the nursery trade for their ability to withstand Vermont winters. One thing to keep in mind is that we are really on the sort of northern edge or northern limit of where you can grow rhododendrons. Okay, so we're going to take a little walk down to the older part of the collection that represents plants that were seed grown from seed planted by Harrison Flint back in the 60s. But these plants have got to be, what, 25 feet tall? So they're more than 60 years old. And so they represent one of the older collections of rhododendrons that you'll find this far north.
Paul notes that Dr. Pellet and Dr. Harrison chose excellent locations for these plantings.
This site here really represents kind of the ideal situation for rhododendrons. We're sort of on the north side of an evergreen forest. We have these large white pine trees here.
In addition to protecting the plants from strong winds, the shade from these pine trees is essential to keeping the evergreen leaves of the rhododendron from drying out in the winter.
The other thing that we got going here is the soil is really well drained. So good drainage is super important for rhododendrons.
But despite their ideal location, all is not well here. The plants are facing an increasingly deadly threat.
I mean, one of the problems we have here at the Hort Farm is invasive plants and just trying to control other things that want to grow in the planting. So anytime anyone ever wants to volunteer, we have a volunteer work day in the spring where we try to control some of these invasive plants. Oriental bittersweet is one of the worst plants that we have to deal with here. It's a vine that winds its way. You can see some of it right in the top of that rhododendron there. So it's really becoming quite a problem, and will probably become quite a problem in the state of Vermont in the near future.
Invasive species will continue to be a threat, and will take the aid of community volunteers to help Paul rescue these incredible rhododendron specimens. At the UVM Horticulture Research and Education Center, I'm Ben Willis with Across the Fence.
And if you would like to lend a hand at UVM Hort Farm and help out with some rhododendron wrangling, Paul is looking for help this Saturday, May 4th from 10 to noon. It's BYOT, which of course means bring your own tools and gloves. For more information, visit the website on your screen and click Events. That puts a bow on Across the Fence for today. My thanks to the crew behind the scenes here at WCAX. From all of us to you, thank you for watching Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. Have a good one.